everybody, and welcome to another exciting episode of Radiorama. Or maybe it won't be exciting. Maybe it'll be just mildly entertaining, or maybe amusing. I don't know, depending on what kind of shenanigans I get myself into. But it is a Granco stereo system, stereo console. And I'm always fascinated by this interesting juxtaposition that you see in some of particularly American electronics from this time period when it comes to cabinet styles. And the whole like colonial slash French provincial style was all the rage back then, but so too is futuristic looking design. And this has about the most gross mismatch of design that I've seen. So you've got this French, whatever, American colonial looking cabinet, and then you've got this really kind of like over the top technical futuristic looking front end. And this is pretty fascinating to me because Granco was a brand made in Long Island City, New York. In fact, it's interesting here that even here they put Long Island City as LIC in New York. And here is the guts. There's nothing very exotic about this. Single-ended output, 6BQ5s. Actually, know what? I'm wrong. It's push-pull. There's 4 6BQ5s. So this actually should sound decent. Now, the speakers aren't anything to write home about, for sure. They are. But it's fascinating that while a lot of cabinets, even from the upper-end manufacturers, were made out of thin particle board, the back of this one is made out of thick plywood. And I get a feeling that when this is all put back together again, that it might not actually sound too bad. Full disclosure, I did try to fire it up yesterday, and it sort of doesn't work. And the reason it doesn't really work is because these switches are sticky, and there's a lot of dirt and debris in the controls. So all I was getting was occasional audio, but mostly just a lot of static and hum. And the hum could be from worn out electrolytic capacitors. There is a single chassis that has everything on it. And there is a record player. And I'm not as familiar with my record player mechs, but I'm hoping it's a voice of music mechanism. United Sound and Television, Los Angeles. Now that's interesting because I asked the people that donated this to the museum what the story was, and her parents, the wife of the couple that donated this said her parents lived in upstate New York and then moved to California sometime in the late 50s. And that's why I find this fascinating, because none of these made it out here. It's interesting to point out that for years and years, you had regional manufacturers, just like there'd be regional beers and regional dairy producers and regional this and that. And so you wouldn't find a Granco for sale in California. You'd probably find, a Packard Bell, but you wouldn't find a Packard Bell for sale in New York because it was a West Coast brand. And so it's very different than today, where everything's made in China for dirt cheap, and so cheap that you can just throw the stuff away. And I found this yesterday while we were digging through parts, and I just love this graphic design. It's no bullshit, to the point, and what's more is that it's my favorite era of design, where everything is bold and to the point and very clever. Like, look how nice that is. This looks good even today. It's so different than a lot of graphic designs from the 50s where, this front end is a perfect example of that, which is you've got this nice all cap kind of non-serif font going on here. And then you've got this stupid cursive-y crap here, custom series. Like, it's just a mismatch. It's okay, but it's not nearly as good as this. That's just amazing to me. This is probably pushing 60 years old. So I'm going to put it up here with the rest of my collection of neat graphic design pieces I keep. I'm not even going to try to fire this up for you folks. Well, maybe I should. It didn't blow up yesterday, just to see where we're at. We'll get a good starting point. Let's see what it'll do. Like I said, I had a hard time getting these even to turn on yesterday. I didn't see this yesterday because it was so dark, it was so light outside, but obviously there's little lights for each one of these little thingies here. Okay, I'm just going to turn it off. We've got the right side working, the left side not working, static, hum. So there's no sense in me trying to get this to work while it's in here. I could just be causing more damage. So I'm going to take all the guts out and put them on the bench. Here is the chassis pulled. Looks like we got a lot of Granco tubes in here. And it's fascinating because it looks like it does have a power transformer, which is great. And it looks like it has, I'm wondering if the radio position or the radio parts of it are running on this lower voltage stuff, because we have an electrolytic can with several values and they're all 150 volts. And this one I already looked, it's 350 volts. That's probably for the rectifiers. I'm amazed this actually still worked. Look at that. Now granted, that could be a later replacement because that sure looks, no, it's an Astron. That's the same brand that's in the rest of this. Not bad output transformers. I mean, no, if you're an audiophile, you'll think those are really puny, but for a regular consumer grade stereo, that's not too bad. There's not as much to replace in this. They did use mostly ceramic discs for all the caps going to and from the tubes. These two will need to be replaced. Those are paper caps, and all the electrolytics need to be replaced. And there's quite a few in here. There's 3 here. There's 2 here. And there's 2 here. So there's 7 electrolytic capacitors. And I think this is the rectifier. So they switched over to diodes for the rectifiers. Those are probably not, I'm not sure if those are silicone or not. I'm not a specialist about those. The switches that I was having so much issues with, they're just sticky, and indeed there's massive quantity of pilot lights up here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 pilot lights. And they don't look super obvious as far as how to replace. Looks like you have to take this back off with all those RCA connections. So I'm hoping those lights are just good. Don't need to screw around with them. But I'm going to take this outside and get the paintbrush and leaf blower and get this dust off here before I start. Before I get started, and I am not an engineer. I'm sure that you engineers could be, I know why they did that. They did that because of XYZ. But this doesn't make any sense to me. I think it has something to do with the diodes that are in here. But what we've got here is the positives going to these diodes. The positives are going to the diodes, the rectifiers rather, and then the negatives are feeding into the positives of 2 of the other electrolytics here. I'm not sure what they're doing here. They're somehow creating a negative voltage. That wouldn't make any sense. This is all tube. I'm not sure if these guys expected some sort of strange voltage configuration, but again, I'm not an engineer, so you guys tell me. I have no freaking clue, but that just makes things a little more interesting. I got the electrolytics replaced. Something that I try to do, if I can help it, is keep any of the power resistors away from the capacitors if I can help it, or at least leave a decent gap. because that heat can really shorten the life expectancy. The other thing that you can do, and what I always do, is I order 105-degree caps versus the 85-degree caps. And those will hold up a lot better in a warm environment. And they're a little bit more, but you know, it's worth it. Because if you put 85-degree caps in here and you were not to separate them from the resistors, you'd cook them. You'd probably get a few years out of it, maybe even a decent amount of time, 10 years, but they will cook. Now, these two, which I'm assuming are probably the same value because it's stereo, it is, need to be replaced. 0.05 microfarad is a big deal. I think they're good alls. They sure look like it. Good all. If you work on these long enough, you'll kind of memorize what capacitors are, and that's kind of sad. It's like, well, what do you do for your hobby? Oh, I work on radios. I can tell you all about capacitors. Versus, I just watched a sports game yesterday. I can tell you who won. I can't tell you any of those things. I'm worthless about practical things. But what I can tell you is interesting, useless things like capacitors. Well, we replaced those two guys, and the controls were making a god-awful amount of racket, so I'm going to clean them out. A lot of them have these slots where the wiper can be accessed, and you just flood it with a ton of cleaner. And I know a lot of you realize what I'm using and probably disapprove of it, but it works just fine. There we go. Let's get these here. Just I realized, and this is a stupid realization, maybe this thing was only partially working because, I don't know, it's Sunday. I stayed up really late last night and I'm tired. Never mind. I was about to say something stupid. Alright. Looks like we got these freed up. I'm going to put it back in the cabinet and see if it works, but I also have... Oh yeah, you know what I need to do is clean all the switches up the top. That was a problem too. Well, I fired it up. It's pretty disappointing.
Those signal communications of the fact that the leader was being...
We've got some real
apartment building, and 13 people...
real problems with contacts in here.
The leader himself, but also a number of civilians were killed, and...
I'm going to have to probably take this unit out and completely clean that out. It's just not working. Look at all those switches. Well, I knew that, obviously, but that's a lot of different contacts to go wrong. So we're just going to clean the absolute snot out of everything. And refill. The pots inside were really dirty too, so need to clean those out too again. Might not hurt to check some of the tubes while I've got it out of here too. That'd be easy. Well, here's the problem I'm having. It's not the speakers. There's something else getting pulled down here. So I need to figure out what's causing that. I think I've got the switches all figured out. Because this side sounds fine.
I don't know, those old movies. Sorry, Dave.
Alright, so I need to figure out what the hell's causing that problem. The problem was apparently me. That's not a good solder connection. It's loose. And considering that's the volume control, that means that only part of the channel was working because it was barely touching. Hey, Goose. How you doing, Goose? Come here. Oh, well, Goose is not interested. He's our neighbor's cat. Anyway, the performance is better, but the sound is still awful. I don't know what that is. Well, here's what I've been doing. This is no fun, and I'm really bad at documenting this, but one channel is really distorted, as you heard. I've done the obvious things. B plus is good. The caps are all replaced. Volume pots, I looked up here, those are okay. But when I'm looking, since you can compare these two, I started comparing each side, because here's our output tubes, and then there's our mixer tube, and there is this resistor here is dead, and that's going to one of the mixers, so that won't work right. Okay, so that was the problem. When I looked at what was this doing here, it's pin number 2 of 12AU7, which is associated with the output, which then goes on up here to the final output stage going into the more or less the volume. So that one little resistor kind of killed everything from this stage onward, and now it seems to work okay. Alright, so good. I think I'm going to take a break from this and go work in the yard. I was like disappointed in myself, but now I'm like, okay, well maybe I'm not so stupid. Arr, she's missing a speaker. Actually, that's on purpose, because the grill cloth on one side was kind of a little bit wrinkly. So I'm going to have to flatten it out a little bit. But what I did is I cleaned out the inside. I know a lot of people are like, so what? No one's going to see inside of there, but I will. So I just came in here and wiped everything down, get all the dust out of there. And you know, it might be a kind of a cheap brand as far as the electronics goes, but the cabinet's really decent. This is actually way nicer than 3/4 of the department store cabinets I've seen. And I'm going to bet you that once this is sealed up, because it looks like we actually have sealed cabinets except for these holes, it'll probably sound a lot better because it's going to resonate. It is pretty dirty, just to be expected, being on this planet this long. So I'm going to go over it first with the cleaner, and then I'm going to go over it with some furniture products. The finish is luckily in really good shape, it's just dirty. So before you start putting stains or anything or cleaners on it, or not cleaners, but oils or anything, try to get the crap off of it first. You can see how much of a difference that made. It's a lot brighter. It's because it's clean. Like everyone, I'm not sure if these people smoked, but even if you don't smoke, you let something like this sit in a house, any house, for 50, 60, 70 years, and it encounters everything that got encountered over that long lifetime, and things are going to happen. It's going to get dirty. So that's why you want to get something like this that has, more of a modern finish. You start getting in the 50s and you start getting into urethanes and stuff for the finishes, then you can really scrub that finish down. If you have an older finish, and I keep forgetting to buy some more at the store because it really does work, you can use something called Gojo, which is an orange cleaner. And if you don't have that in your country, which you might not, since our country is deciding to be a prick about trade, just look for an orange hand cleaner, waterless hand cleaner, and that will scrub. And I just knocked this down the driveway. That's not good. You just want to kind of scrub this stuff into the finish and let it sit and marinate for a little while. Especially good when it's hot outside like it is today. Just let it soak in there. And then I'm going to come back out here with Probably some wax. I said it was sunny and now it's starting to cloud up. One thing I didn't notice until now is it looks like there's a chunk missing here, so I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to file that down, sand it down, and stain it so it's not quite so noticeable. That is unfortunate, but I think I can make that mostly disappear or become less noticeable. This actually kind of has a pretty color to it. It's very orange. Alright, well, I kind of fixed up that leg. Anyway, I am going to use car wax and my orbital buffer here. I decided a long time ago I should stop messing up my hands as easily, and also I started using a bigger buffer because there's a lot of real estate here, and the idea is to get it to look permanently shiny. Well, now that I've gotten the cabinet kind of taken care of, that looks so cool. I'm going to try to straighten this grill cloth up a little bit. Looks like it was stapled on and this has just kind of come loose. Let's see if maybe I can pull these staples up a little bit and just like re-glue it down. But first, before I do that, actually I'm going to pull the staples up and then I'm going to mist it a little bit with some water to kind of soften up that, whatever that material is. It looks like paper or reed. It's probably synthetic, but I know it's not going to be a perfect grill cloth, but I'll get it close. This is a towel, correct. But underneath the towel is the grill cloth. I was able to very gently extract it after pulling all the staples. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get out my handy dandy General Electric iron, put it on steam, and I'm going to do this through the towel. You don't want to do it directly because that would be a fantastic way to damage that fabric. Plus it's probably made out of some sort of weird 50s plastic material that is degraded. So what I'm hoping to do is, since it probably is synthetic material, I try to iron it perfectly flat again. So when I put it back on, it'll be good and tight and it won't look deformed. See if that's made any difference. Can take quite a few passes to do this, but that's already looking significantly better. So I'm just going to keep doing that. Okay, well I've dabbed some wood glue on top of this. So I'm going to grab that fabric and put it back on here, and what I'm also going to do is get a hairdryer out, and the idea is to kind of get that glue tacky so it'll grip, and then you can kind of stretch around the edges with your fingers to make sure it's all good and drum tight. Well, realized I just forgot to show what I just did, sorry. So I did reinstall that panel back in, and yeah, you can see there's definitely kind of a tear there, but at least it's pretty flat, so it's less noticeable. Meanwhile, that repair on the leg, unless you just look really close to it, I'll probably darken it up just a little bit more so it's even less noticeable. But meanwhile, I got the record player out. I kind of cleaned it off a little bit. I'm hoping it's a voice of music mechanism. You can usually tell right away by looking underneath, as well as the first thing I'm going to do, which needs to happen anyway. I'm going to take the platter off. It's not often you work on a completely jet black record player, but anyway, I don't know as much about my record players to determine whether this is a VM unit. I don't think it is. I think it's some other mechanism. No. I don't know about that. That sure as heck looks like a voice of music movement. Well, maybe not. There's some differences here. I just don't know much. I don't know as much about my record players as probably some of you other folks do. I mean, the overall design is similar, but there's some differences here. Anyway, I'll let my friend Kyle chip in, or he'll ping in just a minute. He'll tell me what this is. Well, here's my next thing I'm going to do, and this will probably be raising some eyebrows, but over the years I've found weird tricks. One weird trick, anyway, I found recently that PB Blaster does a great job. I don't put a lot on there, but just a little bit on anything that moves. And I'll just let that kind of sit there for a while and come back, and it generally does a pretty good job of dissolving stuff. And yeah, I know the stuff kind of stinks a little bit, for sure. Wow, there's not as much to this movement as some of these others I've seen, so maybe it's a good thing. I don't know. Kyle has not pinged me back as far as what kind of movement this really is. Anyway, let me flip this upside. What we want to do is make sure that this actually, that thing is already super loose. Usually these get gummed up. Actually, yes and no. Recently I've been working on a bunch of German versions of these not voice music, but whatever record player units. And the grease on those for some reason just turns into a glue. But this is already moving really nicely. I'm probably going to clean all that grease off of here after this PB Blaster has a little time to sit there and work and do its magic. Now the other thing I did is I pulled the idler wheel off, the idler pulley. You do not want to get oil on that, so while you're doing this you want to keep that well away from there. One thing that I might need to do is change out the motor mounts. I don't know, they look kind of okay. Maybe. I'll have to try it out. Okay, well, good and bad news. The good news is I got the mechanism to work reasonably well and rather smoothly, but I don't know what just happened. I was about to bitch and complain. I could not get it to start on 33 RPM records. I don't know what just happened now, but I've been trying for an hour to get it to do it. Maybe just some of the lubricant that I put in there finally did its thing. Well, it's working now. Oh well. Anyway, I'm going to let that play for a while. Actually, I'm going to take the needle off. I'm going to take the needle off because this record is horrible. I'm going to put a better record on it. All right, let me try this again. What I want to do is make sure whatever just decided to loosen up continues to stay loose. Okay, that's good. I don't want to stay on any of those bottom records too long because they're crap. Alright, there's a second one. And once you get more records on it, the inertia builds up. So, like, you can put up to 10 records on these, apparently. And that seems to be doing its thing pretty happily. So I'm going to let that play for a while. And meanwhile, I'm going to put some of the guts back into the cabinet. And maybe put the back on. Alright, don't ask me why I did this. I think it's just because I'm OCD or something. But anyway, I wound up cleaning the absolute crap out of the chassis. Turned out there was a kind of this film on top of it. Probably like nicotine film. And it just cleaned off. And now this looks brand spanking new. So I'm going to put that back in the cabinet. Where no one will ever see it again. But I will know it's there. And I will know it's very clean. Well, I've done what I usually do, which is I just worked myself to death on this thing. Should have just gone in. I'm tired. But I couldn't resist. I just have to know if this is going to work or not.
Here we are, helplessly snowbound, too alone, lost in the storm. And though the wind.
There's still a lot of dirty contacts in this thing. It's unreal. What's going on with that channel? Let's see. right. Ouch. That hurt. I just stepped on that. Yeah. Let me see if that's just... Well, there's some audio crap happening in that channel. Definitely. What could that possibly be? Well, you know what? That's all I'm going to do for tonight. I'm done. Okay. I'll have to get back to this tomorrow. Well, what a difference just a night makes. I decided to come out and try this again the next day after all the various chemicals and cleaners and stuff that I put in the controls had a chance to maybe drain out a little bit overnight. And it seems like it's okay now, but I haven't tried all the different selections. Let me plug the Bluetooth in to see if that does anything, because that's where I was having the problems last night. It's not bad. The one thing to remember though is that the cabinet right now is completely open and it's supposed to be a sealed cabinet. Probably going to make a significant difference when we close it back up. Well, it sure sounds a lot better once it's back in the cabinet, or when the cabinet back is, you know, completely shut in the back. That said, I think the 12-inch speaker is either rubbing a little bit or partially deformed. They're very cheap little speakers, so I'll probably just replace that one. I'm also playing weird music on it, which it was never intended to play. It's my music playing off my independent radio station out of Knoxville, Tennessee. You don't have to listen, you really don't have to listen to crappy music, you know? You can listen to whatever you want. Yep, you hear that? You can hear it. It's definitely a mechanical problem. Actually, I kind of wonder, could it be this speaker instead? Seems to go away whenever I do that. It's that speaker. It's the stupid little 5-inch or 4 1/4 inch speaker they put in AA5s. That's totally what that is. That's okay. I zipped the back on with a whole bunch of little screws, but I think I'll do that tomorrow. I think what I'm going to do now is wax the top. Well, I lied. I was like, it's going to bother me if I don't do this. Sure enough. You hear that? The rubbing. But we need to have that thing, so I'm going to desolder that, and I'm going to solder it onto this one that I found in my stash, and we'll stick that in there, and then it'll quit making that noise. Man, my back is killing me. Alright, so I got the new speaker in there. So now it's trying to put the back on, see if it's going to be different. it's not buzzing anymore, so that's good. It does amaze me how actually halfway decent it sounds. Like, it's got very cheesy speakers in it, but I think the fact that the cabinet is sealed kind of helps it out a little bit, because it definitely projects more forward. Alright, well, I think what I'm going to do is do what I said I was going to do earlier, which is put a little more wax on that top to get out some of these scratches and stuff. And then I think this guy will just about be ready and done for the show this weekend. We're going to an antique show, and I find it's really fun to bring record players. But some of the nicer consoles I'm not bringing to our antique shows. They just get damaged. And also the museum doesn't get as much for them there. So we've been teaming up with various local charitable organizations, and also putting these in different venues, and we tend to do better with them. But this unit isn't worth a great deal, but it does sound good. So if someone wants a good sounding stereo, a period piece in their house, this would be ideal. And the record player works really well. And did I just lose power? I think the plug over here is really wiggly. I hope that just didn't die. Put that back over here. Yep, it's fine. Anyway, I'm gonna let this thing cook away. I'm gonna use my other stereo system while I'm polishing it, though, because I don't know, I like my home stereo better.
Treat me like a ghost. You don't need to tell that you already let go. My love,
Alright, so we got it all back together again. All the little push buttons work.
But because she very dark storm cloud of pessimism, it might be that some proliferation in this.
And there's Bluetooth. Well, I already had that on there. And then we go to phono. Well, that pretty much concludes this episode of Radiorama. Like I said, we're going to take this guy with us to our future show coming up this weekend. There's a good chance no one's going to buy it, because unfortunately that cabinet style is not going to cut it. It looks like Granny's stereo, but maybe someone will want Granny's Granco. Don't know. Never know what goes through people's minds. But in that case, that concludes this episode of Radiorama. Hope you guys learned something, maybe a thing or two. And if you didn't, maybe you got some pure, unbridled entertainment from my own stupidity. But thanks so much for watching, and until the next time something comes across my workbench, I'll see you guys later. Bye-bye. All right, folks, we're going to do something a little bit different today, which is you all see what happens when I restore them, but you never see the outcome. And these folks just bought this, and they're going to take it home. So from peaks to valleys, we have the termination of the restoration. So anyway, thank you much for watching this episode of Radiorama, and until the next time something comes across my workbench, I'll see you guys next time. Adios, bye-bye.